All right. Let's keep this thing rolling. So far we've looked at the if statement, uh, which again is pretty simple. We have the if keyword, and then we have a condition wrapped inside parentheses, and then we have curly braces. And make sure that you use curly braces. And inside the curly braces, that's where we do stuff. That is our code block. Okay. So we're going to move along. And now we're looking at the if else statement. When using the if statement, if the condition evaluates to false, we see that nothing will happen. When we did that, and we said 5 is less than 2, and it did nothing at all. But sometimes we want the program to do something even if the condition is false. And that's where we use if else statement to do this. Okay. And here we have the syntax for if else. We have the if keyword, we have our condition, our curly braces, and inside the curly braces, we do stuff. And then we use the else keyword, and we're creating a chain now. So we're saying else, do something else. So I'm going to come over here and let me type that in here. The if else statement. Because again, sometimes we want the computer to do something even if a statement is false. We'll say if a condition, again, then curly brace, and inside the curly braces, we do stuff. Outside of that closing curly brace, I'm going to say else, and then we will do something else. So this is how it looks right here. If a condition, then do stuff, else, do something else. Let's work on that. Here, I'm going to do this am hungry. So down here, I'm going to say var am hungry. I'm going to set that to false. Okay. And I'm going to say if am hungry, I'm going to console.log I'm hungry. When is lunch? Else, in the console.log, I just ate. I'm ready to take a nap. I just ate. I'm ready to take a nap. So here, this chain is based on the truthiness of am hungry. And so I wanted to do something. So previously in the example that was given in the other lesson, where am hungry was set to true, then it console I'm hungry when it's lunch. But then when am hungry was set to false, nothing happened. Okay. But maybe I do want something to be returned. So here I'm saying, hey, if am hungry is true, console.log I'm hungry when it's lunch. Else, meaning that am hungry is false, console.log I just ate, I'm ready to take a nap. And so right now we can see in the console, I just ate, I'm ready to take a nap. So here we're giving the program not only uh, the choice of whether to complete a task or not, i.e., consoling something or printing something to the console, but also what to do. So saying, hey, if I'm hungry, send this message. Else, send something else. So it's going to send a message one way or the other. It's either going to send I'm hungry when it's lunch, or it's going to send out I just ate, I'm ready to take a nap. And that is based again on the truthiness of am hungry. So am hungry is what holds the power, if you will, in this. And so one thing that you'll want to be careful of as a young codling is these curly braces. This can, this can be the bane of your existence if you allow it. You have to check your curly braces, make sure that they're pairing up properly, okay? Because it's gonna get real freaky in a little bit, all right? But you want to make sure, check and make sure first that your parentheses are open and closed, okay? And then you also want to check and make sure that your curly braces are open and closed properly. So this curly brace right here pairs with this one. Likewise, this one pairs with this one. And so again, it can get very complex. And so you want to make sure that your chain and your if statements are matched properly. Questions about this? All right, cool. We see here, we set am hungry to false. First JavaScript test to see if am hungry is true. If it is, the first code block will execute. Else, the condition is false. The second block will execute. In this instance, the console print out, I just ate, I'm ready to take a nap. So again, notice that it did not print out I'm hungry when it's lunch. It skipped over that code block, okay? So what's happening is here with our condition, I'm testing this out to see what it evaluates to. And if this statement is false, which it is, then it completely disregards that entire block. It's almost as if that block doesn't exist because that is a false statement. So then what it'll do, it'll just move down the chain and come over here to else and execute this block. And also notice I don't have to say anything else what. No, either you're going to be hungry when it's lunch or I just ate, I'm ready to take a nap. We didn't have to specify any condition here for this to execute. All right. Until now. Because, we're talking about and using binary, right? But we don't live in a binary world. That's not the world we live in. Sometimes we want to have multiple choices to make a decision. And that is where the else if statement comes into play. Okay. And so the else if statement makes this even larger. Gets a little more longer, a little more complex. Okay. And let's look at the syntax of it. I'll type that here. The else if statement. It starts off just like any other one. I'm going to say if a condition. Okay. Then we're going to do stuff. And here, I'm going to say else if, and I'm going to write another condition here. In which case, I'm going to do something else. Else here, I don't need to put anything, any condition here. And here we'll do something elser. All right. So this expands the chain because again, sometimes we may not we want to have multiple options of things to do. right, so pause right here. Um, you may or may not have noticed in the examples that some of the statements end with a semicolon, others do not. Look through right here. It says semicolon. There's no semicolon there. Semicolon, semicolon. I don't have one there. In JavaScript, the semicolon represents the end of a statement. However, it is not mandatory to include a semicolon. Yes.
There are certain situations where a semicolon is required.
In JavaScript, where?
Program I'm working with up at my office, because we're linking it to VB. It's requiring.
But that's my point. But because you're using VB, that's why.
It's the JavaScript itself.
Yeah, but it's running right.
It's required to use semicolons for the VB to be able to read.
Exactly. That's because it's VB. That's why. But just vanilla JavaScript, you don't. It's not mandatory that you have a semicolon. But you're making a good point. The code will still execute. It must be noted, though, that as someone who is learning JavaScript, it's a great practice to use the semicolon. The reason is that there are other languages and frameworks, VB, in which the semicolon is mandatory in order for the program to execute. No semicolon may be missing in some of the examples moving forward because the writer, me, I'm team no semicolon. So there, in JavaScript, the semicolon does represent the end of a statement, okay? And if you are new to JavaScript, I strongly recommend that you use a semicolon at the end of each statement, okay? Because it's kind of stated when you're going to some other framework like VB or EJS, or I know definitely like languages like PHP, you have to have a semicolon at the end of the statement, and that lets the program know, hey, this statement has ended. I would recommend that you use semicolons. Okay, I'm not going to, for the most part, because that's just how I roll. And anytime you see a semicolon on something that I wrote, it's because I've allowed the predictive text. So in other words, if I type log, if I use the Emmet abbreviation here, it's going to come with a semicolon. That's going to be different than if I just say console.log. Okay. But yes, so just keep that in mind as we do these lessons. I say for you, use a semicolon. Okay. Because right now, for you, like when you start doing other things, again, like using Visual Basic, or if you want to use EJS, which is something that we'll look at later on, we're using these other frameworks and languages. You're not going to be able to kind of turn on and off when to use a semicolon, when not to use a semicolon. Okay. Whereas I can do that because I've been doing this for just a couple of years. So I know, okay, I'm in JavaScript land. I'm in EJS. I'm writing in PHP right now. I needed my semicolon. Even when I was learning 3JS, and we had to use a language that is C looking, but it's not quite C, called GLSL. Had to use a semicolon at the end of those. And for me, it was a little frustrating because I was learning something new and I had to remember, the reason why this thing, this image or whatever is not loading up or doing what I want to do is because I forgot my semicolon. But I'll say again, when you're learning, when you're new, go to semicolon. Let's look at if, else if. Let's do this. We're going to use something called the date object. Okay. Much like the math object, which we looked at before, that has all these built-in properties and methods. The date object is the same. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to say var today gets new date and open close parentheses. So what we're doing here is we are instantiating the date object. What is the date object? Well, whenever you got a question, just go to a good old MDN right here. Give me $1, MDN. The date object represents a single moment in time in a platform independent format. Date objects encapsulate an integral number that represents milliseconds since the midnight at the beginning of January 1st, 1970 UTC. So this object has been counting, if you will, every single millisecond since midnight, January 1st, 1970. All right. And this is fascinating. The maximum time step representable by a date object is slightly smaller than the maximum safe integer, which is that big obnoxious number. A date object can represent a maximum of that obnoxious number of milliseconds, or what is that, 100 million days relative to the epoch. In other words, this range is from April 20th, 271,821 BC to September 13th, 275,760 AD. Any attempt to represent a time outside this range results in the date object holding a timestamp value of NaN, or in other words, not a number, which is an invalid date. So technically what we could do, I never tried this, don't care to do it, is with using the date object, we can actually find out what day of the week September 13th, 275,760 AD will be, if there's a planet Earth at that point. We could find out, what day of the week September 13th will be. So this date object is pretty doggone sturdy, I'd say. It will last a good while. Now, what they're going to do on September 14th, I hope that, our descendants would have something in place by then on their iOS whatever. Yeah, just copy. There you go. Just copy and paste the old code. Like, we'll just just copy this over and just change a few numbers, screw everything up, right? But anyways, inside of this date object, as I mentioned, there's a whole bunch of methods and properties that will return different things pertaining to the date. So in other words, let's come over here back to our code, and let's just console today. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to console today, and let's see what I get. At the time of this video is being made, it is Monday, February 3rd, 2025, 10:59 Central Standard Time. So it's returning this is returned this time and date at the instance that code was being ran. Because if I come over here and I refresh this, and I can see that the time has changed here because it's running at that instance. All right. So what can I do with that? Let's say I want to find out what day of the week it is. Okay. Or if I want to say, hey, if this is morning, let's do that. We'll say, hey, if it's morning, let's console good morning. If it's afternoon, let's console afternoon. If it's evening, let's console good evening. How do we do that? Well, I'm going to say, hey, how would I be able to know what time it is? Well, let's go back to our date object. And there is a method here. I believe it's this one right here. No, not get time. It's where are you? Is it get hours? Yeah, I believe this is it. I believe it's get hours. So if I say matter of fact, let's just do a test right here. I'm going to say console dot. I'm going to delete that real quick. I'm going to console.log today dot get hours. And let's see what it returns. It returns 10. Yes, so that's correct. So it's 10 o'clock. So that works. So I'm going to say, hey, if today dot get hours is what? How will I know if it's the morning?
If it's less than 12.
If it's less than 12. All right, so if today dot get hours is less than 12.
Does this work on 24 or 12 hours?
Good question. 24 hours. So it will go from 0 to 23, right? So I'm going to say if today dot get hours is less than 12. So in other words, midnight would be 0. Okay, it won't be 12. Then I'm going to console.log good morning. Okay. I say else if what? Today dot get hours is going to be what?
I don't know. What is it, the evening?
Well, we want to do afternoon.
Yeah, so
Less than like.
What
six.
if we, let's say if it's, how about equal to 12 or greater than or equal to 12? Wait, should be less than 12, right? Yeah, thank you. So if we say if today dot get hours is less than or equal to, no, greater than or equal to 12, or today dot get hours is less than, well, not, let's see, not or, let's do and today dot get hours is less than 17, because that'll be 5 o'clock. So if today dot get hours, I need a open close parentheses right there. So if today dot get hours is greater than or equal to 12, meaning 12 o'clock, and it's less than 17 or 5 o'clock, 5 p.m., then we'll log out good afternoon. It depends on what you consider the afternoon. I'm just going to say anything before 5 o'clock.
Do you need the greater than or equal to 12 condition?
We'll find out. Else, we'll log out good evening. And so right now, what should happen? Here, yes, it'll return good morning. Depending on whenever you are doing this video, it will determine what's going to show up in the console. But here, since it's 10:21 a.m. here, it's going to return good morning. Uh, yes, you will need to have that constraint where today I get hours is greater than or equal to 12 and less than 17, because if I remove that and I just have less than 17, we're going to have a bit of an issue. It's going to be looking, because here I have essentially two true statements, right? So it's not going to like that. So I need to have this, I need to expand my expression here to catch that time in between 12 o'clock and 5 o'clock. Because what I don't want, and that's a very good question and a very good thought to have when you are creating an if else chain. You want to make your code blocks mutually exclusive. Okay, you have to think about this. Okay, because you don't want an instance where you have two things that evaluate to true at the same time. Okay, there could be, tampering with alternate universes and such. We don't want to do that. We see what happens when we watch Doctor Strange, the second one. It's kind of mess all over the place. Anyways, pay me, Marvel, Disney. But yeah, so here we're saying if today.get hours is less than 12, console good morning. Else if today.get hours is greater than or equal to 12 and it's less than 17, console.log good afternoon. Else just console good evening. And so the beautiful thing about this is with the get hours, because we're dealing with a clock, and there's a set values that we have, right? The Z is going to go from 0 to 23, and that's it. So there's no, there's not going to be instance where we have, a negative value or a number that goes beyond 23. So this works really nice. Also, the other cool thing is, when we were covering this, and I had a codeling who lives in Nigeria, and we did this exact same thing. Nigeria is 7 hours ahead of us, so it was afternoon, I believe. No, it was the evening at the time we were doing this. But when we did this, what was morning for us was evening for her, and so we were able to see that in real time, because when she ran her date object, the instance based on her computer, her location, it was the evening time, whereas for us it was the morning. So I thought that was like pretty cool, because it is this time, this date object is relative, not it's relative to the instance of that program being run in a particular location. So I thought that was pretty cool. So we'll end the video here because I'm at 30 minutes now. So, but we're gonna see how to clean up like this else if, because as you can imagine, this can get pretty long and pretty nasty. This one is really basic, but you can see, like, with these curly braces and the conditions and stuff, it can get real confusing. Okay, so we're gonna see how we can clean this up in the next video.